In our next demo, we're going to demonstrate how to manipulate a Visual Studio solution with the extension tool that we're creating. For this next demonstration, we're actually going to complete our Display Assembly Info for All Projects button. And as part of doing that, we're actually going to need to be able to interact with the object model of our solution. So to get started on this, let's go back to the code for the event handler for Display Assembly Info for All Projects. And in there, we're going to see where we had our code for setting up our output window pane. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to write some code that's actually going to navigate the hierarchy of whatever solution is loaded up into that experimental instance, and then actually output information about it to the screen. So let's go in here. First thing we need to do is actually get a list of projects to display. So we'll do for each var project in get projects. And get projects is going to be a new method that we are going to create. So we'll come down here and do a private IEnumerable type project. This is going to be using the env-dte namespace, and we'll actually call get projects. Okay. So now, in order to get the projects, we also have to get the solution. So we'll actually create here a solutions method, which will actually get us all of the projects, or actually get us the solution so we can get access to all of the projects. So private solution, get solution, return. Now we're actually going to create a private field called solution so that in the future, after we call it the first time, we don't have to call get solution again. So just set it up like this, solution to get dte2 dot solution. Now get dte2 is actually the top level Visual Studio automation object that we also need to get access to in order to load up the solution. So we'll go ahead and write that method real quick. As you can see, it's kind of a hierarchy of methods that we have to create in order to easily get access to the Visual Studio object model. dte2. This will actually be of type dte2. We'll come in here and type in return. We're going to also set up a private field for this one too. dte2, we're going to cast this of type dte2, call our get service method, and in it we're going to pass in type of sdte. There we go. That actually should be lowercase. Now let's go up and set up our private fields at the top of our class. Private dte2 dte2 go at the namespace, private solution. There we go. So we come back down here. We have our get dte2, which allows us to then get access to the solution. And then we get the solution, which allows us access to the project so we can actually iterate over the list of projects. Okay, so now going back up to our code for our event handler for displaying all that information, the next thing we're going to want to do is actually get the project folder that our project is in, because we're going to be interested in actually opening up some of those files. So let's create a new local variable called project folder. It's going to call a method that we're going to create called getProjectFolder. And in it, we're actually going to pass in the name of the project. So let's go down here again and let's create our getProjectFolder method. This is going to return an object of type directory info. GetProjectFolder. I'm going to pass in a string of project name. Okay, return new file info. And we are going to get a project by project name. Get project by name. We'll pass in project name. We'll get the full name, which will actually be the file path. And delete that. Should be new file info. Bring in the namespace. And then off of that, we'll get the directory, which would be a type directory info. So now we actually need to create another method called getProjectByName. Project by name. The reason we're doing all of these little helper methods is to kind of isolate how these various parts of the solution objects work. So you can actually use these little methods in your own code very easily to find projects and deal with solutions and that kind of thing. Return get projects. Now we're going to do our make use of all of our link stuff that we can do because we've got this set up as an IEnumerable of project name dot equals project name. There we go. So now we can actually get our project folder information. So we'll scroll back up to our code where we're displaying all this information. Now, after we have access to our project folder, for this particular extension, what we're interested in doing is actually displaying out the assembly info information for each project. So we'll do var assembly info file equal new file info system.io path combine. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take the project folder full name and we're going to combine it with our assembly info relative file path and file name properties. And that is actually going to give us a file info object for the assembly info file. So we just used a simple path.combine and combined our project folder directory path and our relative folder property / assembly info.cs file name. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to output to our output window pane, call the output string method, and we're actually going to output to this the name of the project. String.format. I'm actually going to start it off with a new line, which we're going to add in there. Project 0 and then that. Okay, so let's put in our project dot name, and then we'll do our environment dot new line. Excellent. So now the next thing we want to do is we just want to verify that our actual assembly info file really does exist. We don't want to try to do operations on it without knowing that it exists. So we'll do file exists, assembly info file dot full name. And if that doesn't exist, then what we're going to do is we're simply going to output to the window pane that that particular file could not be found. So string.format. Put in 2 spaces just to make it look a little prettier. Assembly info.cs for project could not be found. And then in here, we'll actually put a reference to the project.name. Okay, so if the assembly info file is not found, we'll just update the output window to let us know that. Otherwise, we're actually going to want to read in the contents of this file. So we'll do var assembly info file contents to file.read all text assembly info file full name. Okay, this is actually going to load in all the text. Now we're actually going to do a little pattern, a little regular expression pattern matching here. We're going to do a match, include our namespace, match in assembly info regex. This is actually going to be a regular expression object that we're going to create above. So we'll call matches and do assembly info file contents. And we're actually going to loop over that. So let's go up here and set up our assembly info regex object. Regex assembly info regex. One thing you'll find is when doing a lot of file manipulation here with your Visual Studio extension is you're going to do quite a bit of regular expression stuff. And I've actually got a regular expression that's already prepared, so we will just cut and paste it right in there. Regex options, this is going to be a multi-line. We'll save that, come back down here, and we'll wrap up our assembly info. So here what we're going to do is we're actually going to do output window pane dot output string.format. Once again, put in the 2 spaces to kind of space it out a little. Assembly, put in our item that we're going to show, and then we're going to show our values. Put a comma, then our match groups. If you're not familiar with regular expressions, highly encourage you to brush up on that. Key, match groups, value, and then finally environment, new line. Okay, and that actually completes the code for displaying all of the assembly information. So let's see if this actually works now. First thing we're going to do is compile it. Excellent, it built. And we will come in here and we will actually run this thing. Now what we're going to do is in order for this to work, we actually have to load up a kind of a test project. So I have a web application project that I created and added a bunch of projects to it, that kind of thing. And so we'll be opening that up, but this would work with any project that you would want to open up in Visual Studio. So we'll come File, Open. We're going to do Sample Web App. This is going to open up. We'll see we have a actual web application, and I've got some class libraries that I've created to move it to store other programming logic in. And if you can see here, here's our assembly info files. And we can actually see here, this will be the information that it's going to be displaying to us in the output pane. So we'll come over to the Assembly Info Manager, and we're going to click Display Assembly Info for all projects. We click that, and we come to our output window. There we go. We can see that we've got Solution project assembly info, project sample web app. There's the title, company, test product, copyright information for this particular application. And this is actually reading it from the actual source code files that we referenced through the Visual Studio object model that it provides for us for accessing the solution and all of its projects.